Welcome to the Local Marketing Industry Weekly Update, brought to you by LocalMarketingSource.com. This update is taken from the Local Marketing Source Professional Development Program for local marketers. The Local Marketing Weekly Update is for those interested in marketing their local business on the Internet. For free Internet access to education and training courses, visit LocalMarketingSource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter @ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
All right, Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, and we're bringing you our Local Marketing Industry Weekly Update. Now, the live Q&A is going to follow the weekly update. Our next faculty call is going to be next Wednesday. I guess that's September 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, before we get going, you may hear a dog in the background. I'm sitting on some nice property in Northern Ontario by the lake right now, going through this call, so it's definitely... see, look at not September 13th. It's a good thing we got backup here. My bad. 5 + 7 is 12, not 13. That's Wednesday, September 12th at 4 p.m. Oh, technology is great. This is something that I thought I'd bring up. It's not really local, and it's something that's interesting. That it does have to do with online marketing. As we change our terminology from SEO to online marketing, we're talking SEO here. And it has to do with markup tags that Google has been putting out. If you don't know anything about HTML markup tags in the SEO world or HTML development world, you should start learning, especially in the local front, because Google's launched different markup codes. And what a markup code does is you just wrap a string of information with certain HTML text around it that basically tells a search engine what type of content I'm looking at, whether it's a menu for a local restaurant. But there's there's geocodes. There's a whole variety of different types of markups. But what I'm talking about today is the author tag. And that's the rel equals author attribute. And Google has said that only 9% of blogs utilize this authorship. Now, why is this important? Well, look at the last two updates. You got Panda and Penguin. One's about spammy links, and the other one is about content. And with quality content, it's usually related to an author. Typically, that author should not have a pen name, and they want their work to be exposed. And relating the rel equals author attribute to the author of the blog basically gives credibility to that author, and in turn linking that to their Google Plus profile, and then ultimately creating the authority for your Google Plus profile. And we know the social layer of Google Plus is very big impact on the algorithm. So, having said that, I thought I'd bring this up as a reminder if you don't have your blog, and truthfully, it's always been on the to-do list. I personally had not implemented it, and that's not the case. It's a priority. I should not have let it go this long in any event. An update to Google Webmaster Tools. Again, we're continually seeing a tremendous amount of updates, and how Google is giving us more and more information as marketers. And they just announced that they have a whole new detailed section to describe site errors and tell you specifically what those site errors are. So in the course, we talk about utilizing, what is it, the W3C validator. That's essentially giving you all the information, same information, just all in one spot. And it's a little bit more in English than techie code. Now, this was an interesting piece of information that I came across. This is not surprising at all, but it's coming from an extremely reputable source. And it is data on, well, basically SEO versus PPC. And PPC continues to lose its ability to generate leads. Now, in the marketing umbrella, it's good at different things, like think brand awareness. PPC, definitely, you can buy brand awareness. But to actually generate a prospect and new prospect, like, well, take, for example, remarketing. A lot of people, oh, that's the greatest thing for this and that for business. Well, remarketing doesn't generate new prospects at all. It shouldn't be a prospecting tool at all. It's really just a conversion optimizer. But nonetheless, this study, it's actually the second year that they've done it, and it comes from Web Marketing 123. They're an online agency in California. This was published by Search Engine Land and written by Mac McGee. He's one of the more reputable writers there. And they surveyed 500 marketers, and 65% were B2B. They come from companies like some big boys, you know, FedEx, GE, Cisco, Sony. And they looked at their results. The breakdown of businesses were also small, medium, and large. 32% of the businesses surveyed had less than 5 employees. 60% of all the marketers say their biggest impact on lead generation of anything across the board is SEO. 21% went to social media, and 20% went to PPC. So what is that telling us? 3 times. A study, now going back to my statistical classes in university, which, God, I hated stats, but there was something that I remembered. And you know, during election time, they say, you know, the percentage is going to be this or that. We surveyed 1,100 people. You've got a statistical margin of error of, 3%. Well, I often wondered, 300 million people in the United States, how can you get a good perspective with surveying 1,100 people? Well, that's called your sample size, 1,100 people. And depending on the size of an audience, following statistical equations, you can determine how big of a sample size you need to get a statistically valid result with that particular group. Well, it works out that there's a point in time in terms of size, whether it's 100,000 people or 1 million people, I don't know, I don't remember that. But the number of people that needs to be surveyed is 1,100, give or take a couple of dozen either way. Nonetheless, that gives you a statistical margin of error of 3%. What I'm saying here is, based off of the numbers, this data definitely supports a very small margin of error. It's coming from a reputable organization and being reprinted. So these figures are very likely to be true to the market space. And what they're saying is, in the B2B environment, SEO is 60%, and B2C, that's business to consumer, that would be the retail sector, is 50% for SEO and lead generation. The breakdown between PPC and social media is roughly the same on the other side. For B2C, you're looking at 25, and pretty much 50. 50% for SEO, 25% for PPC, and 25% for social media. So how's that? I mean, that definitely is in accordance when we look at click-through rates of the SERP listings and whatnot of PPC versus SEO. And there's definitely a lot of advantages. I mean, people look at SEO and think, oh, well, that's free traffic. That's definitely not free. I mean, there's a huge cost to having shitty SEO. We'll call that opportunity cost. We'll talk about that in a minute anyhow. So I guess that leads us into the fact of how is this measured? You know, especially a B2C, or sorry, B2B, not B2C. B2C is a lot easier to measure. The reason why B2B is difficult to measure is because of sales cycles. You could take $1 million product and service, and the sales cycle could be 2 years. But if that lead was generated through organic SEO, there's a lot of value to those leads. Now, that also leads to the biggest frustration with SEO, is it is difficult to measure the results. 70% of marketers across the United States say that they're not able to accurately attribute leads to sales from organic search in B2B. I would fall into that 70%. I am not able to accurately attribute my leads and sales to both my businesses, and my clients. Now, I know what the solution is, and I know exactly what needs to be done in order to do it, but it becomes very, very difficult. You need CRM. Oh, maybe that's why Google bought CRM software, right? You need to be able to track it back. You can do it manually, but to have all of these systems integrated is expensive and difficult. This piece of information, I thought I would digress a little bit. Now, I don't know if I really have to digress because I can definitely take a local spin on it. It's talking about children's education. And this is a neat article that I found about Larry Page and Sergey Brin, which are the founders of Google. And it's fairly known that they're graduates of Montessori schools in their younger years prior to high school. If you don't know anything about Montessori schools, it's a private school system, but it's the concept behind it. And I'm not a huge fan of the public school system. I'm definitely taking a keen interest in the education of children and how they're being taught. Having a child in school and another child in high school, it's bizarre. But in any event, Montessori essentially, well, they have mixed age classrooms. You know, who's to say that you should put all 38-year-olds into one room? You know, 8-year-olds are all different. Everybody's different. None of them have the same temperature. None of them have the same learning ability. Nonetheless, Montessori also allows students to choose activities. Now they have a certain range of options. They get uninterrupted blocks of work time, and then they're basically they work off of a discovery model where students learn concepts from working with materials and directly as opposed to just direct instructions. And so Larry and Sergey attribute their success to the Montessori education system. It's a pretty big deal. I see opportunities. You know, my sister's a teacher, and she taught English for 9 years in China. And she's come back to Canada, and just she doesn't like the school system here. It's not much different than the United States. She wouldn't like it there either. And I don't blame her having to deal with that. But nonetheless, being able to teach and move forward with technology today and smart televisions that are starting to come out and the interaction with applications that are out there, it's a big opportunity. Now, from a local front, you know, friends of mine, they own 5 schools. Well, they charge $800 a month per student. That may sound like a lot, but that's what I was paying for childcare services. Not quite that, pretty close to that. So to drop $1,000 a month for your child on a private school, and they've got 30, 50, 100 students in some of these private schools, yeah, you start to do the math. What an amazing opportunity to get into. I don't know a single marketer on the planet in the local front that's focusing on these schools. They are so important to Google and the Google founders. And Google is predicated on the concept of great content. Well, these are schools that are providing great content. God, the leverage opportunities for the local internet marketing space I think is really high. So I thought I would share some of that. Moving into whatever you want to call it, name matching or synonym matching. Synonym. You know, like if I'm doing a search and you know, we know that there's different dialect. Like I just went and asked my dad for a soda. Well, he's like, what gives me club soda? Well, we don't call it soda in Canada. You know, it's kind of, it's pop. And there are different parts of the United States. Some places they call it pop. Some places they call it soda. Well, if I'm doing a search in Google and I do a search for top soda company or America's favorite cola, soda cola, and somebody's built a website that has only got the content pop on it, you would expect that that other site of pop should come up if it's got authority. Well, that's name matching or synonym matching that we're talking about here, and that's a really, really big deal because there's just so many different ways, especially in our butchered English language, to say stuff. Sometimes they get it wrong in a lot of different times. Like I was reading, what was it, with Best Buy and H.H. Gregg. Now, this has been recently fixed in the last couple of weeks because it became public, but when you did a search for laptop and H.H. Gregg would come up number 1, but number 2 was Best Buy. Now, the way Google works with this is they watch people what they're searching for. So they watch their initial search. You know, if they're going to do a search for YouTube and Google says one day, hey, maybe not YouTube, U2, the band, okay, if they're doing a search, maybe we'll want to show some videos. And then they'll choose to do a trial. And if nobody clicks on those videos, then they say, okay, well, there's no association to YouTube and video content. We're not going to start showing videos. But on the other hand, if there is a lot of click-throughs to videos, they may end up trying to show more. And then they can decide in their own network what videos to show. You know, with YouTube, A Beautiful Day, their top song. And as a matter of fact, I believe that that's exactly what comes up when you do a search for YouTube, without having to put in the phrase video, because they're trying to figure out what people are looking for based off of personal data and, of course, global data into their algorithm and trying to figure out different word association. So, I mean, that really has refined the algorithm in many different ways. And, you know, when I started SEO, people said, you know, make sure you figure out all the misspellings of the keywords that you're looking for and get those misspellings on your page. And it was like, why the heck do I want to do that when somebody's trying to read that? Yeah, it might get me ranked, but it really makes my website look crappy. Keyword research is just one of those tasks that I can remember back in '06 and trying to figure it out, and it was so frustrating. A lot of things didn't make sense, but now all of that stuff is starting to really make sense to me. That SEO was a very technical game, and keyword research was a very technical piece of it. SEOers put a tremendous weight on keyword research. It was the most important step. If you failed at keyword research, well, yeah, it did, because of the way the algorithms were set up, and word associations weren't like they were today, and you know, you can get easy content, and especially with the 2 most recent updates, really made a big deal. And so, you know, I often argued, how important is keyword research really? Now, I'm not an e-commerce guy. I'm not an AdSense type of guy. I'm not building many sites that are out there and ranking them organically. I'm a local guy. And Google's going to be able to tell us a little bit on the mainstream of content and words that are being searched out there. But really, how important is keyword research? You know, I argue that keyword research can be done without a single tool online. You want to get the best keyword research? Grab a clipboard and go to your local mall and start asking 100 people, what words would you use to search for a dentist with this phone? Keyword research really has got to be relabeled. And it's got to be redefined, because the truth is keyword research the exact process of what we do with keyword research isn't in every marketing book or every marketing course that's out there. When we start talking about marketing research, we've got two different types. We've got primary and secondary. Primary research is when you go and get the information yourself. Secondary is when somebody else has done it. Well, these tools are all secondary research. So keyword research really is what? It's market research. You're trying to figure out what your market wants and how they want to get it. Well, wait a minute. When you're trying to figure out what your market wants, isn't that like marketing 101? Isn't that some of the very first things we're taught in marketing? Is to understand your audience, segment your audience, and deliver messaging to that specific audience? Wow, that really parallels the SEO world. Why we got all these SEO terms, I don't know. We had techies doing it, that's why. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that, because Google's algorithm for searcher intent and misspellings and synonyms have really rolled out. And I am going to bet, based off of this post, this just hit me, that the next update is going to have a lot to do with this. And the reason why I say that, this is making sense as I talk this through, is because of the social layer that's added. Look at what YouTube just launched last week. I don't have these in my notes, so I got to go off of my memory here. I forget what it's called, Moon, something, I don't know. But basically YouTube, which is owned by Google, is ranking videos based off of emotion, not based off of user opinion. Well, we're human beings, right? And I talk a lot about meeting people in person as opposed to texting them and the intent that you have with that. Well, the point is, God, I just read another thing on Facebook today that says, you know, people don't remember what you say, they don't remember what you did, but they remember how they make you feel. Because feelings are so important to us as human beings. All communication should be shared. There's some sort of feeling of how you make me feel, or I make you feel, or how I can make my customers feel, and whatnot. You know, or what about that expression that we don't buy a product or service, we buy a state. A state is an anticipated feeling that we're going to receive from that product or service. I can go buy a Kia or a BMW. They're both cars. They both get me from point A to point B, but I'm going to feel different driving the BMW with the luxuries that it's got than I would that little Kia on the road. Feelings. How web pages make us feel, how content makes us feel. Where does this information get picked up? Ah, yeah, the social layer. So maybe we can build a bot that goes and searches the social network for specific words that are related to specific sites that make you feel happy or sad or angry or upset or motivated. Do a search in Google for feeling words. You're going to realize how many different feelings the human body can really share. When I did that search a few years ago, I was really surprised. Yeah, that's little Timmy. That means I'll go back inside. Cute little rescue dog that my parents had gotten. Beautiful dog. Not as nice as my Vegas, though. You know, I love my Vegas. I've never had a dog where so many people have told me, Scott, oh God, your dog is just the most amazing. She's just so loyal and good. And feelings, yeah, she gives me a great feeling. But I really encourage you to go to Google and do a search for feeling words. And it's words like empathy. If you don't know what that means, you probably should start trying to figure that out. You may think you know. What's the difference between empathy and apathy? But as marketers, we've got to understand the stuff that we create, how it makes people feel and resonate. And we've got to understand the feelings that our customers need to get from the services. So you can take a dentist, for example, and you sit down with that dentist and you start to ask them. You know, I'm going to just use the analogy of a chiropractor instead of a dentist. Because I could really relate. I mean, you get different feelings. Well, you know what? Let's talk about both of them, because I am a consumer of both of those services. And I get very different feelings from both those services. I hate spending money on a dentist. To me, it's a waste of money. I'm more than happy to give my chiropractor money once a week. I don't pay him once a week, but I go once a week, and I get services once a week. I pay $40 for an adjustment. That takes 10 minutes. How does that make? Well, it gives me a tremendous emotional boost. It gives me a very big physical boost. But a dentist, on the other hand, doesn't make me feel the same way. And that's very common. How many people do you know actually like to go and sit into that dentist chair? And so as a marketer, and you're creating content for that dentist, whether it be on their website or their messaging, and understanding their audience, maybe even going listening and speaking to a few of the patients or asking the dentist, how do you think you make your patients feel? Well, that dentist is going to turn around and say, you know what, I'm different because of this, this, and that. You know what, we use a different type of sedative over here, and our patients absolutely love it because they're walking out smiling ear to ear and whatever it may be. Well, that's what you use in your marketing material. That's what you use in your content, along with theme-related content and geo-related content. And guess what? You do that exercise, forget about having to do keyword research for local businesses. You don't need to. You're going to get the content in there. Create blogs that evoke different feelings in different ways and whatnot. So, all right, let's move on down here. I talked about some of the hidden costs, the opportunity costs of trying to do SEO the easy way. And this is really simple. You know, you can go out and buy links or get into link building campaigns. I can't believe I'm still getting solicited constantly about trying to go out and build links for my clients. Penguin is going to shut you down overnight. Anybody that's run into that situation, it's pretty much been washed out. We know how to get around that. And, you know, there's been a lot of arguments. There's people that are out there that are paying money in linked assertion services. That's basically trying to get rid of all their bad links and, you know, what should you do and how should you focus on this. And really, at the end of the day, if you're going to start spending your time and trying to remove a link and different emails back and forth, God, you know, some of these sites will have thousands of links. That's a lot of work. What if you spent your time creating positive content and positive links from this point forward, instead of spending your time in removing the bad stuff? What's going to happen? Well, it comes down to a ratio. There's a certain ratio, because we could turn around and we could spam a site all day, and this has been proven in the SEO community. If you want to take down a site, you want to give a competitor a bad name, go start firing a bunch of links at them. $50. You drop $50 on Fiverr, and you can take a competitor out. Not going to last very long, and they're going to catch wind of that fairly soon. But it comes down to a ratio because they want to minimize that. You can't just have bad links going to your site and say, oh, your site's going to have poor rankings. No, you start driving good quality links to that, that's going to offset those really fast. Don't be paying for link building campaigns. Don't go out and get cheap links. You know, if you're going to be doing forum posts and you want to get forum links, make sure people are talking about you on that forum. Make sure you get thanked. Make sure people link to that post. Start posts. If you want to go out and create content and go and distribute it to a bunch of sites to get a bunch of links, poor content, think Google Panda. When did that come out? February of last year? We know that cheap content is just thrown out. It's got to, I mean, quality content is going to have likes. It's going to have +1s. It's going to get shared. Sharing information, man. Human beings share information. That's why we've got the ability to communicate. We've been doing it forever. Technology has allowed us to share information in new ways and faster ways. Social has been the biggest phenomenon, the biggest adoption of technology, or at least the internet. The growth of some of these sites is just astounding and unbelievable. The situation with Facebook and their recent IPO, you know, 2 big investors pull out. Their stock price is at 50% of what it was. You know, is it a bad buy? Well, they say stock price typically, you know, could be associated to the value or projected earnings and whatnot. And, you know, you can take Facebook, you know, they're still riding. Their stock value is still 28 times its projected earnings per share. Apple, the most successful company on the planet, the richest company on the planet, an amazing story behind them, is trading at less than 15 times. So based off of that financial metric alone, I would have to say that the Facebook stock is still overvalued. Maybe that's why a couple of those investors had pulled. But on the other hand, what's going on with Zuckerberg? Good old Mark. You know, for 26 years old, this guy has set himself up to have a ridiculous amount of voting rights, and he's set in that company that no single person or group can outvote him. He can't be outvoted. He can't be fired. And so these stock prices that are plummeting, and we're reading it in the media, oh, this guy's getting slammed, like poor Mark. And investors are really starting to get pissed off at this guy. And on the other hand, I may have had it wrong, but Mark is about value and creating services for its users first. And you know, the expression that he's got, I don't remember it word for word, but we're not in business to make products and services, but we build products and services. Now, how does that go? In other words, they build products and services, they generate money to build better products and services, as opposed to the other way around of generating money based off of products and services. And Zuckerberg is in this for the long haul, that he wants to create value for the end users of sharing information in different ways. And so I think that's unique. I think he's really holding out against his shareholders, and I think a lot of shareholders are going to drop on him. But he's in this for the long term. Years, not months. And it comes down to quality. Facebook is a quality network. Whether you like it or not, whether you're going to bitch about it or not, like everyone else that's out there, its users or satisfaction for 900 million users is pretty darn impressive. And people always come back. As long as people are sharing information, and that's what Facebook is all about. It's based off of sharing information. As long as people are sharing information, it's going to exist. Well, if it's that important, you as an individual are only going to share something that evokes a certain emotion for you. So let's build content that evokes emotion, and it will get shared. Doesn't that make sense? So, the cost of doing poor SEO, you've got those two. You know, you can get websites made for $50 or $100 or $150, even $1,000. I mean, we charge way more than that. My clients can go and get sites done a lot less. But what's the cost of that? Conversion. Of course, you can say errors and security vulnerabilities and terrible looking sites, but at the end of the day, it comes down to conversion. If you don't have a marketer that understands your audience, same arguments again, that understands the flow and what people are looking for and how, as opposed to just a web developer that says this is cool, we can make this look cool, you're missing a lot of money on the table. So think about what you're doing. Think about your business. If you're offering cheap SEO services, or you're still doing some of the old school strategies, what's your cost for that? Your clients are going to get ranked. You're going to have to work hard. They're going to get hit at some point in time. You're going to have to work harder to fix it. Meanwhile, then, you're not focusing on building. You're focusing on fixing. You're not focusing on growing. You're focusing on keeping. So if you're interested in building an internet marketing agency that creates a lot of work and not a real business behind it, go and follow the other 95% of SEO experts out there that tell you, you got to get in and you got to do this, you got to get links. Forget about links. There's no shortcuts, guys, period. None. You're fighting Google. So the 5 fundamentals of content marketing. This is something that is going to be published. Quality content, right? Well, this is coming from yours truly and relating it directly to marketing. And so, if you're creating content for your end user, does it meet your consumers, your target audience's goals? That content you're creating, does it reach the target audience's goals? So if you're a flower shop and the goal of a consumer, what are they looking for when they buy flowers? Fresh. They smell good. I don't know. I picked a bad example. I'm not much of a flower guy. But if you're going to create content around that, does that content relate to that? You know, how are you going to find that stuff out? Well, interviewing the customer, interviewing your customer, their customers. Doing market research, understanding the industry, understanding purchasing. We don't talk much about buyer behaviors of consumers either. Number 2, what are the trust signals? The content that you're creating, where are the trust? What's the trust associated to it? How have you built that? Well, heck, in SEO, we talk about authority, right? Well, how are you defining trust? And how is it linked into that particular content? Number 3, is there even an interest from your audience, or is there engagement? You can measure that in different ways. You know, there's a tool. Oh, God, what was it? Wolfgram. Oh, I'd have to look into my history. And it basically analyzes Facebook, the data on Facebook. It was kind of amazing, the data that it gave me. You know, it looked at my Facebook. I spent an hour and a half just looking at the ridiculous amount of data that was pulled out of my Facebook profile, all of my friends, all of my posts, all of my pictures. It tells me, you know, which pictures of my audience were shared the most, who shared my stuff the most, who shared my stuff that was in relation to other friends and stuff like that. Yeah, it was put out by Wolfram Alpha, a very, very reputable marketing research source. Just go to the Wolfram Alpha site and just type in Facebook report, and then click the little button that reads Analyze my Facebook data. I highly recommend that all of you do that. From a marketer's perspective, that's just going to give you insight into this tremendous amount of data and see how that data can be used. Your light bulbs are going to go on a little bit. I really encourage that. I got some other notes here. This is coming off of CNN. I'm not really going to talk about this much, but as you know, it's hitting the mainstream. You know, we don't talk anymore. The problem with text messaging, and you know, I've talked about that a lot. I've written a lot about that. It's a big deal to me with a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old female. She's no different than anybody else, but it's just a matter of communication, and it all comes down to emotion, guys. You know, there's 3 ways to influence human behavior: the words we say, the tone, how we use it, and our physiology, plain and simple. They all have a different weight on the way to influence human behavior, and we get different emotion from different things. How can you evoke motion through text? Perception is reality. Let's face it. People read things differently. They have a different tone and whatnot. You know, if you have an iPad, go and get a reading book. I just recognized this a couple of nights ago with my son. I do a lot of reading with my son, and I like to animate when I read. And we have a self-reading book that reads along with the words, and obviously that interpreter interprets the words differently. I really noticed how I would animate differently than the other person. Not that one is right or wrong, but we could definitely evoke different emotion through that. And so, yeah, the reason why I threw this up here is just you guys, when you're out selling, I get so many people that ask me, you know, do you think I'm over here? Do you think I can sell these people here? Or, you know, be able to do different email marketing and whatnot, and develop that. It's all fine and dandy. We generate leads through, you know, that emotionalist strategy, but throwing in video and audio and building a relationship with your audience in a different way is going to evoke that emotion. More importantly, getting these people on the phone will absolutely support that. And if in most cases you can get yourself in front of them, that's your best bet. So, and that's it. You know, except for Apple, that blocked an application that lets you know where the next drone hit was just happened on an instant basis. You know, these closed environments are difficult to work with. Facebook's a closed environment. Google's open. Not really, though, because they don't have an API for their social center, so really, maybe they're not. Apple, very, very closed system. They make the rules. They're entitled to sell and how they want. So, well, that's going to be the conclusion of this week's weekly update. We ran a little bit long today.
That concludes this Local Marketing Weekly Update, brought to you by LocalMarketingSource.com. This update is provided from the Local Marketing Source Professional Development Program for local marketers. Visit LocalMarketingSource.com for additional resources focused on online marketing for local businesses.